We're going to begin today's lesson with Bluebells. We are going to learn how to play the song on our keyboard, but first let's review. What we know the history of the song, we know our high and low sounds that we've been working on for the past 2 units, and we know some facts about reading music. So the history on the bluebell. The bluebell is actually a flower that has a dewy and fresh scent that reminds people of the ocean. In our song, the flower is compared to seashells and how they turn up at their ends. And seashells can turn over as well. So that is the history of our song for bluebells. So when we look at high and low sounds, we first discovered that there was a line that we put our sounds on, and on that line we had high and low. When we looked at that line, we put high sounds above the line and low sounds below the line. And then in Unit 2, we discovered that we have G and E is what we labeled our high and low sounds as. So it wasn't now high and low, it is G and E. So we still have high as G, and it'll go in the same place, and low as E, and E goes in the same place as low, so it looks like this. We have our line, G goes above the line for high sounds, and E goes below the line for low sounds. Now when we go to read music, if we look at our Bluebells music, we have a couple of things that we know from our facts. First, we read music from left to right, just like we read a regular book. Next, we also have the title in every piece of music. Even if it's made of numbers or letters or symbols, each piece of music has a title. It's the same thing as when you listen to a song on the radio, that song has a title or a name. Second, we also have our staff. The staff has 5 lines and 4 spaces, and this is where we write music. Second, on our sheet music, we have music notes or quarter notes and eighth notes. They are placed on the staff. Music notes tell us how many beats that we're going to have sound for and how long we're going to play that sound. We also have a time signature that tells us how many beats there are, and in this case, in Bluebells, we have 4 beats per measure, or 4 heartbeats. We also have the measure, and the measure is where we group our beats. A measure is a very small idea of music sounds. And second, we also have this bar line that separates those sounds and those ideas. So that bar line separates the groups of sound. So when we look at reading music, we have all of these fun facts that we've learned so far in Unit 3. We have our title, our staff, the music note, the time signature, the measure, and the bar line. We will be working with this throughout the next units to keep finding these to make sure we know where they are. And so what we're going to look at today is we're going to look at 2 music notes on the staff and how to play them. So when we look at our high to low sounds, we have this line and we have our high and low sounds. And we know that when we replace those with notes, we have high to low notes. And when we actually look at these notes on the staff, it's going to look a little bit different. So before, we started with our high and low notes, above and below the line. But now, what we're going to do is we have the staff that has lines and spaces. So in order to create these spaces, let's put a box around that line. So if you look, we now have a note in a space. It is in the space between the black and blue line. Same thing with our low sound. So now we have notes that are in spaces. So whenever we go to make our 5 lines for the staff, we have to add more lines, so this is how we do it. We have our original line, We add our box like we did before. Now we have 3 lines and 2 spaces. And we add our last box that creates those 5 lines and 4 spaces. We now have a picture of what our staff looks like. And that means that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 lines. So our staff looks like this. This is a picture of a musical staff. So when we look at high and low on the staff, we are looking at a high sound that is on a line will have a low sound that is on a line, and that looks like this. There's a high sound and there's a low sound. They are both on a line. Now, let's look at the spaces. If you have a high sound in a space, you will have a low sound in a space. We see the high sound in between the lines. That means it is in a space. And then we also have a low sound in between the lines, and that is also in a space. So when we read high and low, we used to have just high and low sounds, such as do, and a low sound, do. So on the staff, we call them G and E, just like we did before, but now I'm going to show you where they are. So G is on the second line of the staff. You can see it as a quarter note, and you can see it as 2/8 notes. And then E is on the first line, on the very bottom of the staff. You can see it as a quarter note, and you can also see it as 2/8 notes. You did a great job today reviewing the facts that we have for music, and I hope that you can now find G and E on the staff.